Good morning. We're doing Shin Samach Aleph today. Interesting one, a bit easier than yesterday. You'll be pleased to know. So Shin Samach Aleph Din Gag HaSamach Rishus HaRabim. So you've got a house which is next to Rishus HaRabim. So if you look at picture number 1, can you see there? It says number 1 in the footnotes. So you've got a little house and a chotzer around it, and you've got a highway next to it, a Rishus HaRabim next to it. And you've got a ladder there, you'll see soon why, up against the roof of the house. So it says the Mechaber, Gag HaSamach Rishus HaRabim. You've got a gag which is close, which abuts the Rishus HaRabim. But Teich Asar Tfachim, but it's quite low. In other words, from the perspective of the Rishus HaRabim, it's lower than 10 Tfachim, so people in the Rishus HaRabim are going to use it. But it's more than 10 Tfachim within the chotzer. Either the chotzer is low down on the ground or something like that. Since people in the Rishus HaRabim are going to be using the roof of the house, it's got a din of a Rishus HaRabim, and therefore, for this homeowner who wants to use it, he's got a problem. So it's got a din of Rishus HaRabim in some respects. For also the balagag lishtamish boy, and therefore the balagag can't use it normally mechatzeiroi to take something from his chotzer, for example, and put it on the roof. What Chazal instituted is that he should put on a permanent basis a ladder against the roof to remind him of this. Ezo sulam kavua. What does that mean? A sulam kavua. Kol shekvoi sham bein lechol bein l'Shabbos. It's there full time, whether weekday, whether it's for Shabbos. Okay, good. Says the Mishnah Berurah. B'toich asar tefachim tahainu sheletzad Rishus HaRabim eina gaveh asar tefachim. So from the perspective of the Rishus HaRabim, it's not more than 10 tefachim. But from that perspective, from his chotzer, it is more than 10 tefachim. Now, why have you got to construct that scenario? Because if this house wasn't 10 tefachim, because then you wouldn't, the ladder wouldn't help you bichlal to have Rishus HaRabim gomur k'shirabim mekasonov, because then it's not that it looks like a Rishus HaRabim this gag, but it is a Rishus HaRabim. And if people are not literally, mekasve means a shoulder to shoulder, but they put things on it, they lean on it, they put things on it, then I'll call upon him caramelis. But then it's maybe at best, maybe it's at least a caramelis. Avul hashta, but now, since from the chotzer side it is 10 tefachim, yesh alagag teres yochid. It's got a din of Rishus HaYochid. And therefore I'm allowed to use it when I've got a ladder going from my chotzer to the gag. Because what does the ladder do? And this is the critical point, that it demonstrates your masalik, the gag, you're removing the gag from the status or the bnei Rishus HaRabim, ve'ein shaykh rak lo, and it's my gag. Ve'im mitzad Rishus HaRabim gevei asar tefachim ein tzarich sulam. Now, if it's more than 10 tefachim from the side of the Rishus HaRabim, then you don't even need a sulam. Ve'im hagag nomuch pachas masar, and if the gag is lower than 10 tefachim mikol tzad from both sides, or b'soichei omak asar tefachim, and inside it, in other words, from the outside of the chotzer it's less than 10 tefachim. From the side of the Rishus HaRabim it's less than 10 tefachim. But just from the inside of the house, you've got you've dug deep into the ground, and from the inside of that little house, it's got a din of 10 tefachim. Then you dig into the ground. Then in that situation you don't need the sulam. The ain't shame caramelis of klal, because it hasn't got the status of a caramelis. Because from the inside of the house it has 10 tefachim height, and that gives it Rishus HaYochid. However, many of the achrenim argue with him. The daitom, the midrabanan shem caramelis al gaboy, it does have the status of a caramelis milmala above because from the outside it's less than 10 tefachim all around. And therefore you would need a ladder to be matir to a prat and especially when people in the Rabbim are using it. Could be considered the proper Rishus HaRabim, and therefore even a ladder won't help you. Mishtamshin boy, sif cotton base in the Mishnah Berurah. Mishtamshin boy, the Rabbim use it. Shemanichim kovoim, they put hats on it. V'kelim katanim alagag, they put things on it. Hari zeh Rishus HaRabim. Then it's got the status of Rishus HaRabim, lav Rishus HaRabim mamish, not properly Rishus HaRabim. Because if it was a proper Rishus HaRabim, then the lad is not going to help you. And a road Salema ke'ein Rishus HaRabim, it's like a Rishus HaRabim. Mechat seirei avul begag mutar letaltel bekulei. But on the gag, you could use it freely, no problem. Kol shekov sham, you got to leave it there permanently. Hainu she'omed sham hasulam tomid, that it's there forever. Avul im lefom mesalik lehari command the lesser. But if you occasionally move it, then you've got a problem because as if it's not there. Okay, that is the end of Sif Aleph. Now,
if you put a fence around it and make it yours or something like that.
Well, if the trouble is, if it's lower than 10 tefachim from the side of the Rishus HaRabim, then it's considered, it's got the status, a quasi-status of Rishus HaRabim. So that is just the reality. The only way around it is putting a gag on it where you're masalik the Bnei Rishus HaRabim and showing it's yours, and that's what help. Because look, you see in the picture, it's already got a fence around it. Okay, base. Chotzeh shenifratza b'meluai. Now here you've got a chotzeh, which is the wall is broken open, either fully, like in the picture. If you look at picture number 6, you've got a wall which is breached open into the Rishus HaRabim, or it's not breached fully, but it's got an opening of more than 10 amas. Makam ha'mechitza nidain katzidei Rishus HaRabim shehu karmelis. The place of the mechitza, that little area, is considered tzidei Rishus HaRabim shehu karmelis shehu chotzer, k'mo shehu chotzer, which has the status of a karmelis k'mo shehu chotzer. Okay, let's see what that means. Says the Mishnah Berurah till there. Sif Cotton Vov. Makam ha'mechitza nidin consider Rishus HaRabim. Tzidei Rishus HaRabim, the sides of the Rishus HaRabim, ba'alma nikra, that's a status, that's a name. Kashem mamidim avonim gedolos. You sort of on the side of the Rishus HaRabim, you put large stones. Oshenaz in your seder, so you dig in pegs, somach lekaisel, near the wall. Shelo yaziku kronos, because you've got traffic, you've got carriages back in the day, and things in cars and whatever nowadays. So you've got to be careful. You've got to protect your home. So they would put sort of stones and pegs to make sure that the Koran, the carriage, the wagon, wouldn't get too close to your house, to your wall. And therefore, that in-between place between the regular Rishus HaRabim and your home, which is, got pegs or stones or things like that, is called Sidei Rishus HaRabim, v'dino k'karmelis, and it has the status of a karmelis. And like with all karmelis, the rule is, you can't carry from a karmelis to a Rishus HaRabim. The kamash malon, da'af ben yonenu, and so too in our situation, after lekashum hefsik ben achotz Rishus HaRabim, even though you haven't got those pegs and stones in picture number 6 between your house and the Rishus HaRabim, va'ayli barabim lehedje v'darsile, and if you've got a lot of traffic, you've got people that are being oile l'regel, and they're walking up that main Rishus HaRabim, they can easily sort of walk into your house. Darsi barabim afilu hachi eina din rak tzidei Rishus HaRabim. It hasn't got a din of a Rishus HaRabim proper, but tzidei Rishus HaRabim. And what does that mean? V'shem karmelis alei, it's got the status of a karmelis. V'osa l'taltim mokum zeh lachutz, and therefore you can't carry from there that little area lachutz shehu Rishus HaRabim v'im karmelis somach l'chotzer. If, however, there was a karmelis next to the chotzer, then no problem. Mutter. The karmelis komataltal. You're allowed to carry from a karmelis to another karmelis. But with our Rishus HaRabim, which is debatable if they're proper Rishus HaRabim, you should be machmir not to carry from that broken wall into a Rishus HaRabim of ours nowadays. Because we say that's got a din of a karmelis. Kamosha chotzer. What does that mean? Sifkot and Zayin. Kamosha chotzer gufa shem karmelis olei machmas shel parot. Since the chotzer has now got a status of a karmelis, because it is breach open beruach revius on the fourth wall, on the fourth side, kain hu gam kain mokam machitza. So too the little area where the machitza used to be has got the same status. You learn two things from here. Echad, one, the bechotzer zeh also the taltel ki im betoich arba amas, because the chotzer itself has now got a din of a karmelis, and therefore you can only carry 4 amas. Shenis, you can't just carry freely now in your chotzer. Shenis, and second of all, the b'mokam ha'mechitza l'toich ha'chotzer mutter l'taltel b'toich arba amas, that I'm allowed to carry dalad amas from the place where the chotzer wall used to be into the chotzer, the travaya shem karmelis a lot, because it both has the status of the karmelis, the chotzer, and the place where the chotzer wall used to be. Good. Let's go back to the mechaber, top line. V'im nifratz bekeren zovis. If the wall now is not breached just across the whole thing like it was in picture 6, but it's breached in the corner, like in picture 7, right? V'im nifratz bekeren zovis, afilu b'pachus me'eseh osa. Even if that breach is less than 10 amas, it is still osa. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotzen Ches, V'im nifratz bekeren zovis, rotzolema, sha'pirtza ochla b'shtei haksolim. The breach eats up 2 parts of the wall, like in the picture. Shelachotze b'sofen zeh etzel zeh. Umashim b'gemara d'im ha'pirtza nase b'shar mekoymes shel ksolim. If the breach was in other areas of the walls, hafilu hoy b'shtei ksolim, even if it was in 2 walls. Kol she'em echal pirtza yosem es amas shari. That if the breach was on 2 points of the wall, so long as it's less than 10 amas, then it's actually okay. That doesn't scupper things. The Tosfos says if the oimid is merubal aparis, but if the opening is more than the actual wall part, osa when the wall is in 2 places. Okay, but back to our case where you've got a breach in the corner there. Now, what's the difference between that and the previous case? Because people are not going to come in there. Says Rashi, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkat Tes, you can't really call it a proper opening. The Pischel Keren is obviously of the Inshi. People don't make openings, entrances in corners. So therefore, in the previous case, where the whole wall, or at least more than 10 amas, has been taken away, Rabim and Mekasvin Olav, people will come in, and therefore it's got the quasi-status of Rabim, we give it a din karmelis. Mashen came here, you don't, people, Karen, Pischel Keren is obviously of the Inshi. People don't make an opening, an entrance in the corner, and therefore, V'dafkin and Pirza, and therefore with the breach we say this. Also, Suras Pesach, if however, he would make a nice Suras Pesach in that corner picture, in picture footnote number 7, then v'cholshkein also shtei mezuzos and mashkef mamish. You make a proper, sides and lintel. But vada shem pesach cholev v'shari, that would be different. Okay. Also, this is going on. Still this mechaba. V'im nifratz bekeren zovis afidu pachos me'esa osa u'mistaber dim hoya piritza pachos me'amo. If it was very small, that piritza, even less than an amma, then ein lahachme. Then you would don't have to worry about that. Ochein. If the opening is between 3 tefachim and 4 you do need 2 lechis. And if it was more than 4, you got to minimize the whole. Okay, back to the mechaber. Second line. So too, if you have a house which was breached open on the corner, even if it was less than 10 amas, also, and can you see? And then it was also the breach in the corner as well. So you see picture number 8. Yeah, you've got the house there in picture number 8. That the corner there is breached. Also, I will pirza she'ena b'keren zovis, but a pirza which is not in the keren zovis, aminim ba pitikra yered v'soisim. We apply the principle of pitikra yered v'soisim, which means the edge of the roof. We pretend that it sort of it drops down v'soisim, and it makes a mechitza. V'afilu b'yosim esa, and that works even if the gap is bigger than 10. V'hu shelo yered pitikra meshupa delekapeh. So long as the roof is horizontal and not on a slant, because if it's on a slant, we don't say pitikra v'yered. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah Berurah till there. Sif kotzen Yud Aleph. V'chein bayis koloma. Deloi tema shani bayis. You don't say the house is different. Da'af api she'ein lahatze b'achmas pesach mipnei she'el b'keren zovis. Mikol mokum ikka mishum pitikra she'al gaba yered v'soisim. You can say pitikra yered v'soisim. Kamash malon the palmim leka mishum pitikra mafarash hechidon, because sometimes pitikra is not possible. For example, as we just said, if it's a slopey roof. Achenisha ba'alachsan osa the bezeh she'ein hakiru shava lo yaminum pitikra yered v'soisim. Afilu b'yosim yasara. even if it is more than 10 amas. Even if it's the entire width of the or length of the wall, there's nothing, there's no bits at all. It's not clear from the Mechaba if you say Pitikra Dafka if it's on one wall, or even two. It's not clear because it wasn't concluded in the Beis Yosef, like his mashma in the Beis Yosef. Ochein HaRamah B'Hagasa, we'll see in a second. The Ramah says now Hetik Ledina Divrei Hatur the Stam Kashit Sapoiskim Disfir Ludafila parts Mishtei Mechitzas Omrim Pitikri V'Soisim Mechudel Kameh. That even if it's on two sides, we can still say Pitikra. Okay, let's just finish off. Just one more Mishnah Berurah. Shaloi Mushbova, so long as it's not slanted. Because if the roof is slanted, we don't say Pitikra v'Yerid. Rotzolema, the loy omrin the Yerid v'Soisim Rak, Kashatikra Cholok, Avul loy Kashil Meshupa, Kein Gagin Shalanu, like our roofs, which are at a slant, so the water falls off. Unless there was some sort of tikra underneath it. Okay, says the Ramah. Let's just finish off. V'yesh oimrim the bo'inon gamkein roich beroichav hakiru arba tvachim. You also need a width of 4 tvachim for it to say pitikra. V'aminim pitikra yad v'soisim afilu b'shtei mechitzas, and you can even do it with 2 mechitzas. Im yesh kan shtei mechitzas shleimas tevuka zu bezu avol zu keneged zu loy. But you don't say it if it's two, if they're opposite each other, the openings. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Tezvov v'yesh omrim v'chein halacha k'mesha kosavti b'pei halacha. The bo'inon arba tvachim rotzolema the oz aminim pitikra yad v'soisim. V'loy dami l'keras mavui ba'alma desagi b'tefach. There, it's with the mavu we say it's enough to have a tefach. The keras mavu ain't el leker balma, because the roof on the mavu is really just for a heka. Avul kalheche de bo'inan mechitza, but whenever you need the mechitza, also shebol tafka arba tfachim. But when you need a proper mechitza, then not just for a heka, then you need it to be at least 4 tfachim. V'azomin pitikra v'sosim, and then you can say pitikra. V'im yesh kan shtei mechitzas shleimas pirush v'mechitzas anistorim nishar leim hakirui shalom nisosei mohem. The roof stayed, but the wall went away. So you can stay pitikri v'sosim, and it's as if the wall is still there. However, if the breach are not next to each other but opposite each other, then you can't. Why? To oz halonira mefulish, because then it looks like it's broken through and it's like mefulish, which makes it much worse. Mefulish is open on one side and opposite is open on the other side, and it looks like a train tracks going through. And we don't invoke the principle of pitikra when it's mefulish. The two breaches are opposite each other. Okay, that is the end of Shin Samach Aleph. Okay, say that. Good place to stop.